We have the story, though. Let's talk about how it's going to hit schools. We got this from Fox 12 Oregon. Brown announces COVID-19 vaccine mandate for Oregon K-12 teachers and staff. K-12 school employees in Oregon must be fully vaccinated by the fall, and healthcare workers will no longer be able to test for COVID-19 weekly as a vaccine alternative. So there's a couple of things here that are big. One, they used to say, if you don't have the vaccine, you can get a negative test. Now that's gone. You can't do it. I also don't believe that there are medical exemptions in any of these, which means teachers who have underlying condition, you're gone.
Wow.
So this is now affecting our schools, and that means what's going to happen? Are parents going to take their kids out of schools?
Some. I mean, you've across the country, you've seen an uptick in homeschooling across the board. I think you're going to see that continue because, again, last year we were all dealing with COVID. Everybody sort of went through their stages. There was a period of time where people were sanitizing their groceries when they came from the store. But now I think we have a better sense of the virus. We have a better sense of the different treatment options. I don't think parents are going to stand for another year of distance learning, universal masking, mask mandates, vaccine mandates. So I think some parents are going to pull their kids out. Some are going to stay and fight. It's interesting that this is Oregon. I think their governor just relaxed some of the graduation requirements in terms of literacy and numeracy in the name of equity. Again, it's always in the name of equity. And this doesn't surprise me in the least bit, but it's so curious. And I try not to be a conspiracy theorist, but when you see the emphasis on our COVID response being basically one of two things, masks and vaccines, where's the discussion of, longer term solutions, diet, exercise, other, healthier lifestyles, therapeutics, different treatment options? It's as if the elected officials and the commentators think it's either you wear your mask, you get vaccinated, or you're going to end up in the ICU and you're going to die. And I feel that's a really bad way to have this discussion nationally.
There's a crazy thread on Twitter where some person claiming to be a pharmacist, I don't know if they were, said that they refused to fill a prescription for ivermectin. And they didn't know what the prescription was for. Apparently, and then they said they called the doctor to verify, and the doctor said, I'm the doctor, you're the pharmacist, you fill it. And again, I'll say ivermectin's not FDA approved. It's going through studies. Some people are optimistic, some people aren't. There's studies that say it does nothing. Ultimately, I just think what your doctor prescribes, man, I'm not going to get in the way of that. So it's not FDA approved. Go to your doctor. You can talk about what you can do. But to see people on Twitter as pharmacists, or at least claiming to be, saying that they would reject any prescription they disagreed with, I was like, man, didn't we have this conversation not long ago about birth control? Where the pharmacists were like, it's against my religion to give this out, so I'm choosing not to, and then they were yelled at for it. I think if a doctor says he knows what's best for you, I'm not going to get in the middle of that. But these schools, man, to go back to that, I actually think this is a really, really good thing. I think the more people we have homeschooled, the better. I think institutionalized learning facilities are very, very bad. And so this might backfire on these government institutions in that parents might just say, what can we do to solve this problem? The school's just getting crazier and crazier. Pod learning. You've heard about like the pods they do, where like, a bunch of neighbors will have their kids go to like one private tutor who will teach them. That sounds brilliant. But you're a big homeschool proponent.
Yeah. So
Tell me about it.
My wife and I homeschool. We had our daughter in a public charter school for about a year in DC. We decided to go in a different direction. We love the flexibility that it offers. We love the ability to make our home the center of productive activity, productive economic activity, spiritual activity. So, the ability to spend quality time with our children, particularly when they're young, to pour into them our values, our worldview, and to really teach them, because we believe that education is equal parts scholarship and discipleship. And when you look at the left and some of the crazy things that go on in schools, I think every parent should ask themselves, do I want these people discipling my kids? So I think, again, I'm a huge fan, a huge proponent of home education for very principled reasons, because I think this is where the right gets it wrong on school choice. Right. I believe in school choice. I think education is the responsibility of parents. They may delegate that responsibility to schools, right, in loco parentis, but the schools think in loco parentis is Spanish. They think it means these parents are crazy, so it's our turn to take over, as opposed to Latin, which means in place of parents. And I think parents need to take that authority back, and they need to understand that they are in control of the education process, and not the schools and the admins, which are becoming increasingly partisan, from the schools of education that train teachers to the actual admins on a local level, down to the classrooms where teachers are expressly saying, we are looking to train, the next generation of activists. And for me, when I look at a lot of these larger urban school districts that in many respects honestly are failing our kids, and particularly low income kids, I'm asking myself, what's the point of, helping Jamal be an activist if he needs Karen to write a sign, So to me, again, as I said, this is where parents can take some control. But in order to do that, we need to talk about other issues. And some of those have to do with family and family formation. My wife and I can do what we're doing now because we're married, right? We have our kids together. We are pulling in the same direction. But homeschooling may be a lot more difficult for a single mom who's raising her kids if she has to go out and work. So I think that's where community institutions can come in. Churches or other, faith-based institutions can say, we have a couple of educators on staff. You all can bring your kids here. We'll teach them in whatever curriculum we think is the best, and we can support, families in that way.
Churches, man. I think a lot of people who might have not grown up with religion don't understand the power of a church in the sense of you see people, and that's really it. I mean, you go there and then you see your neighbors, and my experience is always like people would be talking before and after. You needed help with something, people would be there for you.
Yeah.
Some young men would, some dad would be like, "Oh, my kids will help you clean out your garage, won't you, boys?" And they'll be like, "Yeah," and then they'll go. And so you have that community. Now what do we have is we have neighbors who never talk to each other. Yeah. We have there was this ad. I don't know if it's real. I just saw a meme, and it's like a New York subway ad or something where it says bad, and it shows two faces talking to each other. Then it says, or it says like worse, and then it says better, and then it shows two people wearing masks talking to each other, and then it says best, and it's two faces looking down, not talking to each other at all, one on a book, one on the phone, and I'm like, that's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So our buddy Luke, who's been on the show quite a bit, he made a video a long time ago on his YouTube channel where I think it's called Just Keep Going, Got Nothing to Lose, where he said, he's lived in New York his whole life, and every day he goes on the train and he realized that none of these people ever talk to each other.
No, they would look at each other.
So
everybody's head is down.
No. So he decided just to start talking to these people and asking them questions about like what they think, and it's like a really moving video. It got 1 million views, and this is back in the day, so it did really, really well. But that's a really good example of, when you're trying to figure out how to teach your kids family structure. Because if you don't have two parents, or a single mom can't do it, she can't afford a tutor either. She's probably not making enough. Unless she's a single mom and she's got a really great job, which probably exists. In which case, pods.
Yeah.
Find, hire a tutor.
Yeah.
Have all the kids sit in a classroom like normal.
Yeah. So I actually, I wrote an article for the Blaze last week that talked about, family in this way. It talked about, it actually linked together a story about Nick Cannon and his views on marriage being Eurocentric. Yep. Critical race theory and some of the crazy stuff going on in schools, and then COVID, because imagine you're a woman who's about to have, either you've had a child recently or you're looking to go back to work, and your employer is saying, you have to take the vaccine. So if you're pregnant, you're like, I don't know if I want to take it, feeling the pressure to take the vaccine or lose your job potentially. That's a pretty difficult decision to make. And the point I was making in the article is that, when couples again have the benefit of marriage where, they are, as I said, pulling together in the same direction for their mutual benefit and the benefit of their children, it gives them options. A wife could tell her husband, I don't want to do this. I'm tired of whatever's going on at my workplace for one reason or the other. And they have options that, other families don't have. So I was making, the case for marriage as not just a social good, but also, a very sort of practical arrangement. That's not typically how I make the case about marriage, but it also does have practical benefits. And I think you've seen that during the pandemic. And we have a lot of activists who want to disrupt that. Yeah. That was one of the messages from Black Lives Matter. Tell me about it. Don't get me started on that. Well, I'm trying to get you started on that. Like, why it seems so destructive to hurt a family. Yeah. I mean, part of it, when at the point where Black Lives Matter said that we are trained Marxists, people should have listened to them. Yep.
I thought you were going to say they should have shut him out. No, you're right. They should have listened to him.
They should have done that too.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm a big believer in worldview. Regardless of what it is, you should know what a person believes, because that'll give you an understanding of why they believe what they believe. So when Marx talks about abolishing the family, because he understood that the family is not just where children, receive their moral instruction, but is also a vehicle for passing down private property. And he wanted to take the kids from their parents and dedicate them to the state, right? So Black Lives Matter, has a similar vision in their Black Villages principle. Before they took it off their website, because they started to get a lot of heat for it, they talked about wanting to disrupt the nuclear family requirement that, requires mothers to do X, Y, and Z. At no point did they talk about fathers or husbands, because in their world, those people don't exist. And that's why I would make the argument that, BLM is only interested in Black men to the extent that their, dead bodies help further their political goals. And that's not the type of organization that I would. There's under no circumstance would I, as a Black man, get behind any organization that says that they want to disrupt the nuclear family at all. Under no circumstance.
They removed it though, didn't they? Take it off their website?
Yeah, they got a lot of heat, but they had their principles on their website for years.
Yep.
And once they started to grow in prominence last year, and people started to pick up on it, and some people would ask them questions, particularly on the conservative media side. They never got asked questions from Don Lemon or Roland Martin or any of the other media that they did, sort of the corporate legacy media. But once they started to get those questions, they scrubbed it, because they knew that was a very, very unpopular take. But I think people should understand that organization, those principles were a reflection of their worldview. And that's why I ask people all the time, if you start an environmental organization and then I go to your principles and you never mention the environment, that should be a red flag. So when you say you're against police violence and in your 13 principles, you never mention police, violence, men, boys. It's all about, being queer affirming, transgender affirming, woman affirming, Black families and Black villages that erase husbands and fathers. That should have been a red flag to people. But for whatever reason, our society they take whatever the top line is and they run with it.
Yep. Corporations. They said, hey, this is safe. Let's run with that.
Yeah.
And you get a bunch of people living in New York City who work for advertising firms. Mm-hmm. So they're the ones who make those decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. And you see how that ended up.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.